It's BJJ Joe. What I'm doing is a video series, and it's basically a video series of me interviewing guys that have successful gyms. So, I'm sure like a lot of you guys out there, I eventually want to open up my own gym. And every time I get to travel, I'll sit down and talk to the gym owners and find out what makes their gym successful. So instead of keeping that a secret to myself, what I decided to do was share that with you and sit down with these guys and do interviews. So this is going to be kind of the part one of that series. So, and really what I'm trying to explore are kind of your average Joe gym owners, your quote-unquote average Joe gym owners. Because guys like Andre Galvao or Marcel Garcia, they're successful because they have brand name recognition, right? But what makes the average Joe, what makes his gym successful? And that's what I want to explore with this video series. Gyms have a tendency to come in different forms, right? And typically the first form that you'll see as far as jiu-jitsu is they teach you nothing but jiu-jitsu. It's a straight jiu-jitsu gym. All right, the second form that you'll see is a traditional martial arts gym that also teaches jiu-jitsu. More typically, it's associated with the Gracie Academy, right? So they teach Gracie Jiu Jitsu. The third is a jiu-jitsu gym that teaches some form of striking. More times than not, that is a Muay Thai Kickboxing Academy or class that they'll have along with jiu-jitsu. And the fourth is what I call kind of a global gym, right? That does everything. They do jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo, Muay Thai kickboxing, boxing, kickboxing, and then also CrossFit, so they kind of encompass everything. So, and those are the types of gyms or gym owners I'm going to probably talk to during this video series. So, all right, so the first guy that I'm talking to is Bill Odom. Bill is a black belt in Tang Soo Do and a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He's owned Norfolk Karate Academy for the last 14 years. And Bill falls under that category of a traditional martial arts gym that offers Gracie Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He's got an 8,000 square foot academy. It's really nice. It's broken off into 2 training rooms, and also has a smaller third private room where you could do private instruction. And also in the backyard or in the back section of the gym is this really nice bamboo garden that has a raised platform that can also be used for training, and it has a little water feature back there. He's got a pro shop, front desk, 2 changing rooms, and then like a little gym workout area as well. So his academy location, it sits in kind of a warehouse district. A block from him is a gymnastics academy, which is kind of a great funnel for bringing kids into his program. And he's blocks from ODU. He sits kind of surrounded by single family homes. He's less than a mile from a local elementary school, and then his nearest competitor is just over a mile away, which is a Muay Thai gym that offers Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So he's in a pretty good location. As far as his student base, majority of his students are kids, and then also adults. And I would say it's pretty well split, kids and adults. He's got about 150 students that attend his academy. And like I said, they're kind of split adults and kids, but he focuses a lot on the kids program. All right, so this interview with Bill, the initial interview was over 2 hours long, but I've edited it down to about an hour. But Bill dropped a lot of good knowledge bombs. Some of the things that I took away from it, just kind of upfront, are Bill owns his facility, so that his 5,000 square feet of training space, he owns that facility, or that building, if you will. So what's nice about owning your building is you're kind of building equity into that building. So if he eventually decides to give it up, he can sell the building, or he can like his plan is to do is turn over that facility or that building to one of his instructors. They can take over the program and basically just pay him rent. And that'll be his income, basically, is the rent from that building. The other nice thing about that facility is it has offices on the exterior, so he's able to lease out other offices of that same building to other people, right? So that's also some additional income from that facility. So owning your own facility was a great idea, or it was kind of a good nugget for me, because I didn't even think about that piece of it. The other thing too, Bill had recommended is if you have to lease for a short term, and then hopefully during that time you can build up enough savings that maybe you can buy your own facility somewhere else or your own building to, same thing, kind of build up your own equity into it. Bill pays his instructors, right? So Bill has a cadre of 8 to 9 instructors that teach his karate program and also teach his jiu-jitsu program. His jiu-jitsu instructors range from blue to purple belt, and then his karate instructors are obviously black belts. But what's nice, and I've taken some combatives class with his lower belts, and his guys, man, they know their stuff. They're excellent instructors, but Bill attributes that to the Gracie Academy, right? Because in order for his qualification his qualification for them to teach, and I'm sure also Gracie Academies, is that they attend the Gracie Academy teachers. I think it's the Instructor certification program. And that basically teaches them how to teach. And like I said, every instructor that I've taken a class with, because I come from a sport background, I've never had self-defense jiu-jitsu before, so I was taking self-defense classes from his student base. So his blues and his purple belts, man, they're excellent instructors, which he strictly attributes to the instructor certification program from the Gracie Academy. So they do a pretty good job there. I guess kind of the third knowledge bomb, if you will, is his focus on the kids. Right, he's got a very robust kids program that are pretty much split even as far as total numbers from the karate as well as the jiu-jitsu program. And with his program, he pretty much runs 6 days a week as far as the academy is concerned, as far as his scheduling is concerned. And the way he's got it set up is, so basically a kid can take karate and jiu-jitsu at the same time and be active the full week, so which is great for parents, right? Because that's one of the things that parents really enjoy, is having that kids program or the ability to have their kids in a program. So that's pretty good. So all right, hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Like I said, eventually I'll figure out how to turn this into an audio and drop it in that way. But like I said, Bill's has dropped a lot of great knowledge bombs in this, and take a listen. Hope you enjoy it.
All right, Bill, thanks for joining me today. Today I'm with Bill Odom. He's the owner of Norfolk Karate Academy in Norfolk, Virginia. Bill is a brown belt under Gracie Academy and is a Gracie Academy affiliate. So thanks for joining me, Bill. I appreciate your time. Bill, can you do me a favor and give me kind of some background on you? What's your martial arts background?
Okay, I started when I was 10 years old in Thailand, where my dad was assigned with the military. Spent 2 years training in Taekwondo back then. And I want to caveat that, because in the Taekwondo, I think, has a bad reputation today, but back in the 60s, it was very self-defense oriented. It had not turned into the sport that we see today. It looked a lot more like Japanese karate in terms of the way we kicked, punched, and swept people to the ground, elbows, headbutts. I mean, it was very street fight oriented as opposed to the way that I think it's evolved. So anyway, that was the foundation. It's kind of a hardcore foundation. It didn't make me into a tough little kid, but you're talking about a class that would happen after school at 2:30 in the afternoon on the concrete in Thailand. that was hardcore. I left Thailand, I guess it would have been in 1968. And again, I was just a kid at the time. I'm sorry, 1970. And I was looking for a Taekwondo school. I wound up going to a school in Springfield called Roberts School of Karate, which was Mudokwan Tang Soo Do. Tang Soo Do is the Korean word for karate. And Mudokwan is the style. Previously, I'd done Jidokwan in Bangkok. And I stayed with Mr. Roberts from then until now. He basically gave me the foundation that I have for the ability to strike, to hit hard with kicks and punches. And he basically introduced me to technical karate, karate that I thought worked, and that became my foundation, for martial arts. After that, I went to college. When I was in college, I competed and saw different sides of karate and jiu-jitsu. Kind of opened my eyes up to some of the things that I had not seen in the D.C. area. Although I got to admit, in the D.C. area in the 60s, there were only like 5 schools. You had Roberts in Virginia, you had Jun Rhee, you had Kiwon Kim up in Maryland. You had a couple guys on also on the Maryland side, but 5 schools, and you had a karate school, a kung fu school, a couple taekwondo schools. You had judo and jiu-jitsu, but it was mostly stand-up Japanese style, no Brazilian jiu-jitsu, of course. And then once I was in the military, kind of like you, I would go around and check various schools out. Never really trained much, because it's the military life is so all-encompassing. It's difficult to train and get hooked into a curriculum, because you're going to move or deploy. So I didn't do much of that, but I sampled a lot of things. Did about a year of Jeet Kune Do, Wing Chun Kung Fu. Did some boxing. Had a guy in the unit. I didn't get in the ring and fight. I learned the mechanics from a West Point boxer who essentially taught me the basics in a very fundamental technical way, and that was very valuable training. I taught at West Point for a couple years, and while there I did about a year of judo. and which also had a stand-up variation of jiu-jitsu associated with it. And I think that's about it. Had not done Muay Thai, even though I lived in Thailand for 7 years. I didn't do Muay Thai, which is kind of interesting. And until 2000, I was kind of oblivious to jiu-jitsu. And even a little bit before that, I was not privy to the first couple UFCs. I kind of missed that whole thing until I heard a guy talking about this Royce Gracie guy. And so I checked it out. I found that my beloved Ranger Battalion had brought the Gracies in to teach them self-defense. So that kind of got my attention as well. And after sampling all of the various arts that were being taught in the United States, for that matter around the world, they chose Gracie Jiu Jitsu to be the foundation for what they were going to teach in the Ranger Battalion, which then grew into the Modern Army Combatives program and is now the foundation for everything they teach in the Army. But having said that, because of that affiliation with the Army, I was able to get Uncle Sam to fund the Gracies to come out to Korea. I brought them out 4 times, actually, for a week at a time to run what today is called the Gracie Combatives course. That's where I met Horian Gracie, and I would hook up with him in Seoul and drive for about 2 hours up to the DMZ where we would do the training there with one of my infantry battalions. And in the process of driving to and from 2 hours a day, 2 hours up, 2 hours back, I got to know him fairly well, and we became pretty good friends. And I took leave every time the Gracies came to town, and I joined the course. So I took the class as the brigade commander the whole time, which was a great break for me. I loved it. And that really was that's the extent of all of the martial arts I've been associated with. Strong karate foundation, and then layered on top of it jiu-jitsu, and that layer has gotten thicker and thicker and thicker over the years.
Now, at what point did you start teaching martial arts?
That's a great question too. I actually started when I was a junior in high school. I was kind of the okay, it doesn't sound very humble, but I was one of the stars of the school. I was Mr. Roberts' boy. It's a grasshopper, and he was very successful. He had 5 schools in the DC area, and obviously he couldn't be at all 5. So when he left his Woodbridge studio, I took over. I can't remember what I was. I must have been a 2nd degree black belt at the time. 17 years old. And back then it was kind of tough. Those were still the days where people come through the door and want to fight you. But back then I was quick enough and had enough skill that I was willing to throw down. So anyway, I ran that school for 2 years as a junior and a senior in high school. That's where I found I kind of had a knack for teaching. It's not martial arts skill that brought me that. I think you either are a decent teacher or you're not. Now, you can become a better teacher, but if you don't have a good foundation for relating to people and being able to break things down into pieces so that you can translate it, it's going to be hard to teach. Right. You just can't throw stuff at people and expect them to absorb it. The higher level of teaching then is knowing how to take that methodology and modify it to the individual. But at the most basic level, you've got to be able to break things into pieces, explain them, and translate that into something that the student can do. And I found I could do that. I actually did that, I thought, better than Mr. Roberts. That's not to say I was better in martial arts than he was. He's to this day, he's the man. But in terms of breaking it down and explaining what he was teaching me to another person, I actually could do that very well.
Right. And I think, I've discussed before where, there's usually a difference between you can be a great martial artist, a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, but sometimes that doesn't translate over to being a great instructor, and you're right. I think it's one of those things where some people have a knack for being a fantastic instructor, and it's one of those things. It's a technique that you can also learn, but being a great practitioner doesn't necessarily always equate to being a great teacher and instructor. Well, so now, at what point did you open your own academy?
There was a little bit of an interim period in there, just to discuss very briefly. I in the military, I tried repeatedly to establish a martial arts program in conjunction with whatever I was teaching, platoon level, company, battalion, brigade. I always wanted to have a martial arts component. Part of it was selfish because I wanted to keep active in it, and it was a way to do it. But the other part was Army combatives up until that point was no good. And I always felt that it was part of the warrior ethos is being able to go hand to hand as well as everything else. Although the truth of the matter, as you know, if you're going hand to hand, something's going really, really badly wrong. You ought to be walking in and cleaning up, not going hand to hand with people. So it has more to do with leadership development than it does actual fighting skill. But so I did teach on active duty, club type things more than anything else. I opened this school in 2004, specifically April of 2004, which more specifically 3rd of April 2004, which is the day after I retired, or the Monday after I retired. I retired on a Friday. I opened the school on a Monday. That's not true, on a Saturday. And it was over in the Palace Shops across from the Baker's Crust, 1,700 square feet total. And I stayed there for a year and began to outgrow the place. Had about 100 students the first year, which was my objective. I was pleasantly surprised to have that many people. And I didn't need the space. I could have handled it at the time, but I wanted more space. And
well, and then when you opened your school, did you open it as a, with your karate background, did you open it as a karate academy or as a jiu-jitsu academy?
Another good question. I've always felt, at that time especially, it would have been 2004, and I had been doing jiu-jitsu at that time for maybe 4 years. And my focus had been on self-defense techniques, individual techniques, more so than the roll. What happens if you get grabbed here, two-hand choke, grab from behind. And my thinking was, I liked those moves a lot for self-defense. I also liked my punching and my kicking and my sweeps and my karate. But the hole in the karate was the grappling piece. So I was bringing the jiu-jitsu in that I had learned through the Army, through Gracie combatives, and supplementing the Norfolk Karate Academy. It was a karate school, Muay Tang Soo Do, following a curriculum very similar to what Mr. Roberts had taught me. Even the layout of the school emblems, the patches, I just copied everything that I had grown up with because I was so comfortable with that. At that time, I was a 5th Dan in the Roberts program. So all of my rank comes from him. And in many people's eyes, that's probably pretty sketch. So my feeling has always been, show me. It's and if it works, then I use it. And that's how the jiu-jitsu got incorporated into the program. I said, this stuff is good.
So you outgrew your place that you initially had opened up.
Yes. And
how long did that take for you to kind of get to that point where you were breaking even and actually making some money?
Okay, here's the details for what you were looking at. I was on active duty, but getting ready to retire. I was retiring as an 06. Pretty good retirement. I did the math on what it would take to get started, and I figured I needed about $10,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot, to get started. That was enough to buy mats, to install some bars, to take care of any of the interior work, although most of that was done by the landlord. He did the build-out for me. Signage, licenses. You can go down the list of all the things you need to do to start a business, but I mapped all that out, and $10K was sufficient. And then the most important thing I did is, okay, how many students, at what rate will it take me to pay my monthly bills? So the $10,000's gone. Now what will be my overhead every month? The overhead is your rent, your utilities. In the beginning, insurance. That's about it. Right. In the beginning. That's all it takes. It's not hard to start. Once you've got everything you need, you buy some uniforms to get started as well.
And did you start off, I guess, did you start off cold as far as just you opened a school and are expecting students to come in, or did you already have maybe a student base that you were working with somewhere else at the Y or some locations?
I started I got my business license in December of 2003, knowing that I was going to start on 2004. Because that's when I got out. So I had a plan, typical military guy. I had my op plan, and I had everything laid out in terms of milestones. And so I had started almost 90 days earlier with coming soon. and basically created a web page. It's kind of funny. My web page was nothing but stills from PowerPoint. And you click on one. I had a very rudimentary link that I could put in to go from each. Had a big schedule. I probably have it somewhere. I could still show you the. I literally did everything on PowerPoint, blew everything out, and blew everything up, and then said, okay, this is what I want. And then my kid, who was at Georgia Tech working in computer science, I said, hey, dude, turn this into something that I can, I found a server, put it up there, started advertising that, and then I did the legwork. I walked around with a freaking staple gun and stapled every telephone pole in Ghent. I left stacks of cards at every one of the local stores, told all the store owners they get a discount price, took their cards. What else did I do? A little bit of newspaper, but all local, like Portfolio Weekly. Do you remember that used to be the local paper down there?
Right.
But mostly flyers and handouts and walking around, word of mouth. And when I opened on the 3rd of April, brain cramp now. Anyway, I had 5 kids and 5 adults. My schedule was an adult class and a kids class every day, and they were an hour and a half at the time, which mirrored what we used to do at Roberts. I had a Saturday class as well, so basically it was 10 classes a week. They were all beginners, and I wouldn't say it was hardcore training, but it was very traditional. Stretching and punching and kicking and stances and forms, and Gracie Jiu Jitsu for the self-defense component.
Right.
And I did that. Anyway, I'm getting off track. After doing the math, I initially charged $85 a month, which I later found out was cheap around here, but I was thinking that was high.
Right.
Quick aside, when I trained in Thailand, it was $5 a month. I came to America in 1970. I came back to America. Sounds like I'm coming to America. I came back to America in 1970 and my parents were shocked by the $25 a month that we had to pay Mr. Roberts.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's funny.
I know.
Yeah.
And then anyway, bottom line was I kept it at 85 for the longest time, but I used that 85. I multiplied by 30, whatever the math is on that $4,000, something like that. That covered my expenses. So when I hit 35, and it took about 3 months, I was making money.
Now, were you full-time martial arts instructor, or were you also working a side job as well?
Another great question, and that is probably the $1 million question, and I wish I knew the answer to this. I am 60 now. I'm in my 15-plus year of government service. I just answered the own question. I'm still working, is the bottom line. There's pros and cons to it. On the one hand, the school has never been a liability for me. I can plow everything that I make from the school back into the school. On that note, I've taken very little from the school personally. You noted once upon a time, I said, it's interesting, you have quite a stable of instructors here. That was never the plan. But we'll get off on a tangent on how to structure a curriculum later on, but that's what drove that. When it was just me, it was all me. I could pocket everything. 2 classes a night, not an issue. Basically, it was 5 to 7:30, 3 hours, 5 to 8 Monday through Friday, and then 10 to 12 or 9 to 12 on Saturday. Pretty typical schedule with kids, adults. 1 class, jiu-jitsu, karate combined. And in the early going, we didn't have to break into beginner, intermediate, advanced. It was just 1 class. So life was fairly simple, and I did it all. And I did it all for most of the time. I did have an assistant come in, a guy named Larry Carter, who was also had a very similar lineage, and he was great. He went and got his PhD from ODU. Big tall guy, Thai. He was half Thai. So he was into Kaju Kimbo, which was a mixed martial art from Hawaii, but he also was aware of Roberts. And anyway, he came in, he liked what he saw, and he became my assistant. And he and I was still the primary instructor, but he was there to help in the event that I had to be covered for whatever reason. We never took breaks. We We were open on 3-day weekends. I was open on Sundays because we had a large Orthodox Jewish contingent who could only train on Sundays, so I taught an hour-and-a-half Sunday class for kids as well. We took no winter breaks. I would do open mat, if nothing else, just because I didn't want to close the doors at any time because I wanted people to, get their money's worth.
Right.
Did that for about 5 years. And
this is also working a full-time.
And working a full-time job for Uncle Sam. Yeah, I had retired. I had gone back in. I'm a GS-13. Have been one ever since. Opted not to go any higher because there were too many demands on my work. I had to be able to go into Uncle Sam and say, look, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Raise my hand, swear the oath. However, I want you guys to understand that you're getting a retired colonel at a discount. So I'd like to walk at 1600 so that I can get to class. And I'd like to minimize my travel because if I'm not there, I have nobody to teach.
Wow.
And so that was the deal early on. It's not the deal anymore. But yeah, I burned it at both ends. But now, why could I do that? Part of it was having the buffer. I still had a kid in college. They had expenses. But part of it was the economic buffer. The second thing, though, was what I found with the martial arts schools, and if you see somebody doing this better in town, let me know. I haven't seen anybody with successful day classes. It's I just found that, and I've tried it several times. When we were doing day classes here, people were showing up. I think you came to some sometime. But, and Bernardo likes to run them. But what I found is we were getting the same crew at night, just doubling up and coming in during the day.
Right.
So it was no income, additional expense for the instructors. And we tried everything. We tried Mommy and Me classes. We tried Women Empowered to get the women while the kids were in school. Brad Taylor was working night shifts with the Navy, so he was available during the day, and he thought he could appeal to people doing shift work. I don't think we ever had a class with more than 6 or 7 people that entire time. And we tried it for a good long time. Because that's another thing I found with it takes a little bit of a time to find your niche. I hit 100 is a good number, but you hit plateaus. And a lot of the business people, if they talk to you, they'll talk about how many schools are plateaued at between 100 and 150. I'm one of those. Now, I've got 200 or so on the book, but about 150 are paying. Because none of the faculty pays, none of their family pays. Still, 150, we're up to about 135 a month now, but with family discounts, just do the math. At 100 times 150, that's $15K a month. Not bad. And that's been a good figure for me to use for planning purposes. It's very reliable. I just use 100 as my base, multiply it by the number of students, and we're good to go. Uh-huh. It'd be nice if it was 20K. Life would be very nice. But going back to the hours and what I was charging, I found I broke even after 3 months. And then once I started doing real well, that hard part, real well means putting away a couple thousand a month. And you could do that, 85 students at 100, or I'm sorry, well, 100 students, yeah, at 85 a month is 8,500 a month. Take out, that's like clearing 4K. That's real good. Yeah. But the challenge you then face is, as people advance, you need more classes, you start teaching more, maybe you start hitting the wall, you need more space. So now you have to ask yourself, and this is where the big business question came in. I went to the landlord over at the Palace Shops, and I said, okay, how about we knock out the wall and I take the unit next door? Do I get a discount? No. He said, it's square footage, your rent will double. So now to get the additional space, would I double my students, which would bring in the income? The answer is, I don't think so. Right. What I found and what I would recommend to you is, if you can rent for a year to get your feet on the ground, that's probably a good start. If you got to go for 3, that would be okay. I was very lucky falling into this building. I'm not a very religious guy, but I tell you, my martial arts journey has been blessed. I don't know any other way to put it. I won't go into the details of how just one thing fell into place after another, but very quickly, to put things in perspective, after a year, I was ready to move. it just so happened the landlord wasn't going to let me out of the lease. So I was stuck for 3 years. But I was shopping for a place. I wanted to stay south of the tracks. I wanted to stay, in Norfolk proper.
Right.
I just didn't realize what was up here. Never came this way, and all I saw is you kind of had Park Place, kind of a rough area, industrial. I just didn't see anything. I didn't, go up Collie. You just didn't see shopping centers and lots of people in the neighborhoods were transient. Transient meaning ODU students. So I just had no interest in going there. So I was looking for stuff I was looking for stuff along 21st Street. And I saw a place over by Tap House, a big place, like 5,000 square feet. Wanted it, so I inquired. The guy's name on the building was Frank Thomas, with Sam Seeger. I called up Frank. Hey, Frank. And he said, no, they want to rent, they don't want to sell. I said, okay. He said, but let me show you one. And he brings me to this. It was a mess at the time. He said, this is not even on the market yet. And let me see if the guy, find out what the price is and see what you're willing to pay and what you can. And I would not have been able to get into this. Oh, by the way, after I put down the earnest money and got my 30 days of what they call due diligence to make sure that I can get into this thing, Levin had an offer for $750 for the building, and he honored the due diligence and let me stay with it because he liked what I was going to do with it, as opposed to some developer coming in just taking and turning it into storage or something. So that part lived. Basically, the landlord said, "I've got someone who's interested in your space. We're going to let you go so that Monarch Bank can move in."
Oh.
And I said, "Cool. When do they need to be in?" They need to be. You got to be out by the 1st of August. So now it's the 1st of June.
Oh.
I take possession of this building, and I've got 2 months to get this ready for training. And we did it. I taught a class on Friday night, my last class, Friday night, July 31st. Closed the door, packed everything up in my truck, drove it over here, laid the mats down, and had the first class Saturday morning over here. And it was, I could show you some pictures of the original mat. It's hilarious.
Now,
Yeah.
with your move from your place to here, about how many students did you lose? Did you lose any?
No,
that transfer?
didn't lose a one.
Oh, nice.
They all came with me because, again, the advantage of being the only show in town is there was no place else to go. I was worried about people not wanting to make the trek to go to this nasty gym up in an industrial district. ODU had not gone through its little renaissance yet. But it's no, didn't lose any students because it's a 0.9 mile move. It really wasn't that far. There was no air conditioning, by the way. So the 1st of August, you know what our summers are like here.
Right.
Oh, it's brutal.
Well, there's something to be said about owning the buildings. You're not having to worry about there's pros and cons, right? Because if something breaks, then
Yes.
you've got to fix it. But you own it.
Well, and I got off on a tangent again, talking about the story of being blessed, how all the pieces fell into place. But that's where I was going with this. If you can own your own building, it's the way to go.
Right.
Owning the building gives you a tangible asset that when you choose to sell, like right now I'm in a position where I don't see myself walking away anytime soon, but I know it's going to happen. Like I said, I'm 60 freaking years old. On a good day, I might still be active to 80. More likely, 70.
Right.
Which means I've got to have a, what do they call it? Not transition, there's a word for it, where you hand off the business, a succession plan. Right. I'm working on that now. You can look out on the floor, you know who they are. But it's hard. It's very difficult because all of my best students have come and gone. Many are the young kids coming up. They get to college. They get into the real world.
So, you run your karate classes. So you have karate, and you also have your jiu-jitsu classes.
Yes.
Your karate classes are taught by you as well as your assistant instructors, and then also your kind of beginner jiu-jitsu classes are taught by your instructors that range from blue to purple belts.
Correct.
And I'll tell you, just from my experience of sitting in some of these combatives classes, because I come from a sport jiu-jitsu background, so my basic sport jiu-jitsu, didn't know any of the self-defense stuff. So, I came here and took some, taken a lot of the self-defense classes because I don't know any of the self-defense stuff, and the instructors that you have teaching those are fantastic, man. They're fantastic at teaching the self-defense aspect. I mean, they're fantastic instructors. And one of the things that I like about your program or the way you run your business is that you pay your instructors.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of gyms and have worked as an assistant instructor in a lot of gyms where it's kind of a one-for-one trade. You learn a lesson, you teach a class.
Right, right. That's the norm.
Yeah, and that's kind of the norm across the board. But what I think is fantastic with your program or your assistant instructors is you pay them, and then from my understanding, you also have kind of a profit sharing program with you guys too. So it's and I'll tell you that as I think about opening my own academy someday. Right. That's one of the little nuggets that I've taken with me, is that I want to follow that model of having paid instructors, because I think once if you have a good instructor, you train a good instructor and teach them how, kind of select them to teach, then there's some benefit, right? Because they're going to keep those students coming. They hopefully get some more recruits, retention, and all that good stuff. So it's important to be able to keep them here, and I think having that monetary incentive is important.
This is interesting. First of all, in terms of the quality of those instructors, there's two pieces. In terms of the mechanics of how they teach, that is 100% attributable to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Academy and their instructor certification program. They teach people how to teach. And Jorge and Gracie would tell you that you can see the teaching methodology. He never laid it out. That credit goes to Henner Gracie. Henner was the one who, like me with Mr. Roberts, dissected what his dad was doing. But he was able to take what his dad did and turn it into a teaching science. He codified what his dad was already doing. So the quality of the instruction you see is, I said two things. There's three things. One is the teaching methodology. Two is the curriculum. They've broken the curriculum down in such a way that they teach, based, again, on all their years, what you need to know at that point and no more. When I first learned the Americana arm lock from Horian, he didn't use hooks because he was teaching a 1-week course to the military, and all you had to do was slam the arm down, get your arm underneath, turn your head away, put your head down and rip it. The boys added the hook. Why? Because now they're teaching a course that will go several months with repetitions. You'll keep coming back, so they could add a little bit more detail. Is their curriculum is right? It's for the right people at the right time. So when you add the curriculum with great instruction, the only piece that's missing is the personal charisma and the ability to interrelate to people. I've seen people use their teaching methodology and the curriculum, and they are boring. It's just no good. And I've had some here, to be honest with you. Where I come in, I try to pick them based upon their on that third factor, because that's how I send them. And some are better than others, but as you've noticed, they're all at least B, and most are A, and some are A+. Right now, and I try to put them in positions where the best are with the beginners. Something else to think about, because that's where your seed corn is. You never even get to the next level. So the people who have all of those qualities, even if they're not the most technically proficient, they're in that group, and so I handpick them for that. Now I have a lot of people come to me who want to go to the ICP, and I'll let anybody go. I can't stop them. Right. But if they want to work here, then I kind of play it by ear. And I've had some go that I had reservations, and I've had some that I want to send. Well, Brandon Howard and Mike Larkin. I'd love to send them, but they just haven't been able to break away. They're excellent instructors. They've got the personality. They're my senior students. Right. They're both brown belts now. Mike Larkin was the first guy to go from white to brown through the belts through box top GU. I say that jokingly because I'm very proud of those belts, but people diss it. And I say, go roll with one of those box top brown belts. They're good. Right.
Now with your with the instructor certification program that these guys go to, is that something that you fund for them because you're going to use them as instructors, or is that something they've got to?
Yeah, you definitely put your head into this. These are all great questions. I used to fund it. I've probably sent over 10 people through the course over the years. And I probably have half or less still around. Now, to be honest with you, the first time I funded it, when I sent a bunch to the first one, they gave me a massive discount. But it's expensive.
Right, it's super expensive.
Yes. What I do now is they have to fund it. And then after they come off probation, I refund it. And the model was that they would not teach. Oh, correction, they would not get paid while they were on probation. At the end of the day, if you're going to have a guy who's on the mat and loyal and values what you're giving them, you got to pay them.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll say, I love doing this. I'm going to go do it somewhere else and get paid.
Right.
I think I pay a lot. I mean, just between you and me and anyone who watches or listens, I start them at $20 an hour. And then they can move up from there depending on their seniority. At one point I was thinking I would do it based upon students in the class, but that's not fair because you're always going to have huge beginner classes and they're going to get smaller as you go up. Right. So I opted not to do that. I tend to do it more on rank and contribution now, and I also will factor in extracurricular work. So in terms of the building was probably more than I ever wanted or needed, but at the time, the mortgage, as I said, was going to be less than what I would have been paying in rent at the other place. So I said, okay, I'll take the building and I'll sub out pieces of it, right. Which is what I did. I used to sub the entire half, and then I built out the back quarter, which became the bully-proof room. But that used to be a separate piece right there. It was 814 A, B, C, D. And so the little building on the far side was rented. The financial manager here on the immediate right front, and then the right rear was, we got that big folding door. That was actually access to a big concrete floor where I had a general contractor in there who had all of his shops, his machinery and equipment, parked his trucks in there. The area that's built out in the back were his office spaces. It was storage for furniture for a little while, so it was good to have those sources of income, but I'm glad I took it back, and which brings me to another challenge that we can get to in a minute, and that's the challenge of scheduling versus space. But when you're looking for a space, we already mentioned buying is best. I don't think you need more than about 2,000 square feet. The biggest problem that you're going to face is space management, because if you only have room for one class, then you're limited to the one class. Let's say that's why people started going to 45-minute classes and even 30-minute classes for little kids, was to maximize the turnover in the space. If you have 2 classes a night and they're 2 hours each, and you got 15 people in each class, that's 30 people. If you can do 1-hour classes and have 15 in each of them, you've doubled it. Now you've got 4 classes times 15, you've got 60 students. So you just do the math on how you can increase your throughput. It's funny, the Gracie Academy, the new Gracie Academy, they used to be proud of their huge mat. And to their credit, they could fill it most of the time. But in my particular case, the first thing I did was I put the big curtain up so I could pull it, and I did that so that I could teach Gracie Combatives and Master Cycle concurrently. And when I first started, I would teach Gracie Combatives technique, and then while they were practicing, I'd move to the other side and teach the Master Cycle like a dentist, going, yes, right. And I'd go back and forth teaching, I'd teach the lesson, teach the technique, and I'd go back and forth, and I'd teach a blue belt and a white belt lesson the same night. Right. And it was brilliant because I could. Right. And now we have the space in the back, so now I can have karate going on concurrent with jiu-jitsu and have a private class going on. And theoretically, I could have 3 classes going on. I could have a beginner's class going on in the front, pull the curtain, advanced class in the back, and bully-proof in the corner. The challenge I face now is the bully-proof room. Now I can't say that. The kids' classes are about equal. The bully-proof is about as big as the karate class. Karate classes might even be bigger. So finding a place to overflow the kids is a little bit of a challenge. I made the floor too soft in the back. I could have put karate back in there. It's good for jiu-jitsu. It's a little tight for karate. So I keep the karate on the main floor. Also, when I went to jiu-jitsu mats, they're a little soft for karate. It's kind of hard to keep your balance when you're doing some of the forms and things like that. I tell people, okay, it's like training in sand. Go, go for it. So you'll be better for it. But if you can get 3,000 square feet, I would look at finding a way to partition so that you can do 2 classes at once, because that's the first thing that's going to bite you. Is you'll become a victim of your success, and you'll have to figure out how to carve out the additional classes.
Right. Yeah, and I could see that. And I mean, I think that's cool that you'll have the jiu-jitsu class and the kids class, and then kind of the ages mixed up, if you will, so that you can take jiu-jitsu and karate, be kind of doubled it, if you will.
Yep.
And you don't charge extra for your, you can't buy into one program. It's just you're buying into Norfolk Karate.
Our
you can
rate,
take whatever you want.
To me, a couple things when I studied rates. One was to keep it simple, and it's still complex. When you talk to my people at the front desk, well, what do we do with this? Because what we do is we've gone with a 150 basic rate, but everybody pays 135, because we say if you go auto pay, you get a discount, 15% of 50 minus 15, 135, which is about what we were charging anyway. So, but to make Belda happy, I said, okay, we're going to charge 150, unless they do auto pay. And I like the auto pay because at the beginning of the month, I know it's going to roll over, and I've got a little bit more reliable view of what's coming in. Where do we shade things? If people want to do just women empowered, we do allow that as a separate program. It's in the retail industry. I think they call it the loss leader, but that's because I told them our single most important mission is teaching women. Women's self-defense is at the top of the list. So we charge less than half price, $60 a month for Women Empowered, and we tell them while they're in Women Empowered, they can sample any other class they want. So they can do the yoga, but if they're going to continue with just Women Empowered, we're keeping it 60. If they're going to enroll in the other programs, usually what happens is they will, if they get their pink belt, they graduate from Women Empowered, then they train free for the rest of their lives. And we use them as assistant instructors, and we try to encourage them to progress to Gracie combatives. But yes, what I found is if you have too complex a price structure, it's hard to manage and potentially confuses people. So we're able to say with great strength that for value, you can't beat us. We offer, for a woman, you get 9 classes a week, 36 a month. Divide by 136, I don't know what that is, but it's like a couple bucks a class. Right. It's ridiculous. Now, some of those classes overlap, so it's not exactly 9, but still, in terms of pure value, given the quality of the curriculum, the quality of the instruction, the quality of the facility, you just can't beat it. I don't know how anybody can beat it anywhere in the world.
But the problem is you don't get anyone buying into it, though. Like typically your women's programs are the least amount of people.
Yeah, but now that women, they can do everything. So if you're not a woman, you still get 7 a week. Yeah, the only classes you can't go to are the 2 Women Empowered programs. Right. So the value is still there. Now it's 28. So 30 classes. Let's say the 150 to do math. It's $5 a class. Right. If you went to every class. Yeah, I think keeping the price structure simple like that. Now, where else do we diverge? ODU students, just to get them in the door. We know you jokers don't have any. I think they're the old standard. They pay $75. And then there's an additional fee for access to Gracie University, because I have to pay a per capita fee for people to go to Gracie University. And when people, I don't use contracts. I'm told that's stupid. The people who are really good in the business world say you need to do it, and they make a great case for it. And the case is, you need to commit to us because I'm committing to you. I'm just not good at it. Right. It's especially for someone I don't know, saying you need to sign up for a year. I've tried a discount if you sign up for a year. I have people come and say, will you give me a 10% discount if I pay lump sum up front? I've done that before, but I don't like doing that. I like to have the regular payments, because if I take it, I'll go use it. Now the guy's training, and I don't manage it as well as I should. Right. It's never been a problem, but I like to have a monthly rate. Yeah, that makes sense. We let people go. I refund. I refund without question. People come back, say, hey, I didn't train last month. You should have told us, but here's your money back. Right. So I try to move money off the table as much as possible. But on the other hand, I got a business to run, so I am very conscious of it.
Right.
But the folks at the front desk say, "Are you going to let them go with that?" I said, "Yeah, let them go."
Yeah.
I said, at the end of the day, I don't want them saying they're a bunch of money grubbing guys.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm kind of for the non-contract as well.
Yep.
Because I think it's I mean, we're going to hold a guy that doesn't want to train. I'd rather just be gone. Instead of write a grudge and be upset about it.
If you can find someone to manage that for you, that's great. I've always thought having a third-party biller where you just turn it over to them, that's fine. But at the end of the day, okay, they get pissed off at Educational Funding Company, which is one of them, but they're collecting for you. They come to you, hey, these guys, I can't, you still get caught in the middle.
Right. I mean, like for you, this Norfolk location is perfect. You're less than a half a mile from an elementary school.
Yep.
You're close to ODU, but obviously it doesn't matter.
Close to the world's largest military base.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right. Close to the Norfolk Naval Base. Your nearest competitor is almost a mile away.
Yeah.
But your nearest competitor is a Muay Thai school that offers jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So I mean, you're in a pretty good location.
Yeah.
As far as for your business model. So that and I think your kids program is pretty huge here, and I think a lot of it, even my kids attended here, and a lot of it was because of just word of mouth. Neighbors going, "Oh, my kid attends Norfolk Karate Academy. You should send them there." And I think it's perfect because you're near elementary school as well.
Yes.
Now, most of your adults, are they coming from the base, or are they just kind of parents of kids, or obviously the kids program is huge. What drives your adults to your program? Or what's the demographic, I guess, of the adults in the program?
That's a great question, and it's funny. I was at ICP one year, and a lot of the original instructors in this program came to this program because they had martial arts programs and they wanted to add jiu-jitsu. And so some of my best or longest standing friends through the CTC program did Tang Soo Do or Hwarang Do or one of these traditional arts, and two of them stopped their traditional martial arts program. They said philosophically these programs don't mesh, and I disagreed with them. I was sitting on the other side of this big, huge green mat. I raised my hand, and Hinner and Hiran were sitting here in the middle of the mat. These guys were on the far wall, and I wasn't even on the wall. I was actually sitting up in the little two-step stand they have here, and those two were standing up, and they looked at him. They gave their two, and I'm going raising my hand, and I said, "Well, Bill, what do you think about that?" Because they knew they were going right to me. I said, "I completely disagree," because we were there for, it wasn't our first time. We were returning, just like I'll be going next week again. We go back, and we're kind of like the grand old men who've done stuff. So we advise, mentor the new instructors coming up because we've made all their mistakes. And in this particular case, someone asked, how do you blend the programs? And this guy said, we don't. Well, to make a long story short, I said, I do. And Hiran came to my defense. He said, I agree with Bill. This is the godfather of jiu-jitsu saying, I agree with having a karate program, keeping it if you have it. And he said, one simple reason. It's another set of doors to get them on the mat to bring them to jiu-jitsu. That's what I do with the kids. They don't come here to do jiu-jitsu. They come here to do taekwondo. That's still Boy Scouts. That's still T-ball. That's still youth soccer. Taekwondo is they come in here because, hey, we need to do taekwondo or Karate Kid. There's no jiu-jitsu kid movie out there.
Right.
So they come in here, and if they choose not to do jiu-jitsu, they get it anyway because it's the best thing for them.
Right. And you blend your, and I've noticed that your karate class has jiu-jitsu techniques.
Absolutely. They cannot get away from it.
Right.
And that's because if they get in a fight in school and they're one of my karate kids, I want them to use jiu-jitsu rather than bust the kid's nose. Right. Or swing on a kid who's bigger than them, find out it didn't work, and get crushed. Right. So all of the self-defense in the karate kids, in the karate class is jiu-jitsu. And we use that to bridge them into the class. The ideal is they do both. And that's why we offset the classes so that you have beginner karate on Monday and Wednesday, beginner jiu-jitsu Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
You have advanced karate Tuesday, Thursday. You have advanced jiu-jitsu for kids Monday, Wednesday.
Right.
So the idea is you can come 4 days a week, and then Friday is a makeup day. That's the philosophy behind that mix. Now, adults is different. Adults, they come for jiu-jitsu. So I try to use jiu-jitsu to get them into karate. So what I do in the karate program now is that's where the practical if they see them doing a bunch of kata, then they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Right.
But if I can show a kata move and then say, okay, here's what it looks like, and I'll show something real basic like a low block, and I'll say, okay, grab my wrist here, and I'll peel it off and then punch. And I said, so this motion here becomes a wrist defense and a punch. Okay, so we put it into the kata. And then I'll go and I'll make if there are people watching and listening, I'll say, one of the things I've learned is kata is base. And one of the things I found over the years, I got pretty good base. And it didn't come from jiu-jitsu. It came from karate. A sense of balance, strong legs, strong grounding. I also tell them that everything in fighting is about movement. And movement with balance is the key. You can fall all over the place and be a mess, but if you can move out of the way, maintain balance so that you can counter, you can move to strike with balance so that you can generate force, that's really the essence of what this is about. So low stances and moving your body these ways are teaching you how to shift and maintain balance so that you can transfer power and move. That's all there is to it. And it's fundamental to everything. This is just the karate way. Right. So we try to make those connections to lure them from the very practical, we're going to fight tonight, jiu-jitsu self-defense approach to something that they are lacking in the combatives program.
Now I'll start wrapping up. We've been yakking for quite a long time here. With your, what do you think are your, if you were to throw them out there, what were the top 3 things, or however many you want to throw out there, that maybe lessons learned from owning your own gym? Whether good things that you've done, bad things that you've done, whether it's marketing, location, or business things.
This is one that doesn't necessarily apply to me. It does, but not from a lesson that I learned myself. It is from watching other people. I would not have partners. Do it yourself, keep it yourself, unless you absolutely need to. Don't have a partner. So it's all on you, and you don't have to negotiate. You pay the bills, you make the decisions. So I wouldn't have a partner. I said that at a recent ICP, and everybody kind of looked at me like, but, and I said, no. I said, you're not being selfish. I'm just telling you, if you want life to be easy, it comes back to my military. There's a co-chairman equals no chairman.
Right.
It's you need to be the man.
Right.
That's number 1. Number 2, I would keep a daytime job until I don't know until. I can't answer that because I'm still until. My original plan was 55. I started around 45 or so. No, it wasn't even age-based. I said when I got to 200 students, I would be doing fine. Well, that was before I started bringing in so many instructors. I pay, I'd say a half, at $15K I threw at you, a half that's going to salaries.
How many instructors?
Probably about 9.
So 9 instructors.
Yeah.
10 instructors.
Now, and we're talking, and some are paid more than others because they do more. Focus on what you do best, what makes you unique, and don't try to pander to all of the fads. The big fads out there now, I think, are Krav Maga, the cheap Muay Thai. You know what I'm talking about. I went to a seminar. I'm a junior crew 3rd class now, and no, you're athletic. You learn how to throw a kick, and a 1 and a 2 punch, and you can throw a knee. That's not Muay Thai, but that's enough to hang your shingle out and say, that's enough to run the workout.
Right.
It's not the art of Muay Thai. CrossFit. I looked at it. I looked at taking that back area that's bully-proof now. Perfect. We had a place with an underhang for the weather. We had that garage door, which seems to be the classic thing. I mean, it was perfect. I was all set to make it a CrossFit gym, and I had a guy. I was going to go that route because it seemed to be the thing. I backed off that. Each one of those things independently, I think, are okay. I'm not a fan of the Krav Maga. That thing has been packaged, and now ATA is picking it up. It's just like they go do a seminar, they do a weekend, they get the booklets and the videos, and now they're teaching Krav Maga, which is an Israeli Special Forces amalgamation that's based on tough guys being able to beat tougher guys. it's made for tough people. This idea that you're going to teach a 90-pound woman to overwhelm the guy with strikes and step on their foot and snap their neck is bullshit. And it bugs me because I looked at it. I said, this is good stuff for me, not for Aubrey.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for the women, I look at these women beating up these little girls. I just saw a video. I posted it of the girl on the playground. It looked like she was maybe a 7th grader beating up 7th grade boys. Triangle chokes, arm bars, one after another. Just boom, boom, boom. It was amount. And she was good. Yeah. And she was laughing the whole time. And her friend was, talking smack like those.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, Bill, I appreciate your time.
Sure.
Thank you very much,
All right, my
That
friend.
was good info. I appreciate it.
Hey, if nothing else, you got me to clean my office. It's freaking amazing.